Station. This is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Yes, I'm ready for the event.
CBS News, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Elaine Quijano with CBS News. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear.
Excellent. Let's begin. I'd like to start with your background, Peggy. When you were growing up in Iowa, I understand you sold chickens to get your pilot's license, and that a couple of people told you early on that you should not pursue a career in science. But, of course, you went on anyway to have a tremendously impressive career in science. What drives you?
Well, I think I was always lucky in knowing what I wanted. I pursued my goal of becoming an astronaut in spite of the fact that it was not very likely to have happened. But the advice I give young people is that you have to pursue something and you have to have fun along the way. And I was having a great time. I've always worked at NASA. I have said I've never had a real job because I've always done what I really wanted to do, and that's been the most important thing to me.
Looking back, how have your age and experience now helped you?
Well, I think in preparation for this flight, obviously the experience of having been a commander before and having flown for more than a year on orbit definitely makes the process of preparing for the space flight a lot simpler in knowing what items that I need to worry about versus, the things that I'll get when I get on board or that's just not important for me to know. So I think that experience helps a lot there.
At this age, what would you say some of the challenges are about being in space?
Well, I think living in space is not a trivial thing. We've done a fantastic job up here. We've had a human presence for 18 years now, and which I think is somewhat miraculous that we've been able to keep humans up here that long. But, every day there's always something that could go wrong that could change that whole situation. And so we understand that, and we work very, very hard on the days that are not optimal to fix whatever it is that's broken and ensure and maintain the fact, so everything so that we can stay up here and continue our research. I think our research up here is very important. It's going to really contribute to future exploration beyond low Earth orbit when we go to other planets. And so I really feel that what we're learning, from a very basic engineering level to a very high-level science level is going to be very critical for that future exploration.
Over the course of your career, you've broken a number of records. Is that your goal?
Breaking records has never been my goal. I think it's important that we are breaking records, that, we're continually pushing, our limits and showing that we can extend beyond what we have done before. And so I think breaking records is important, not necessarily holding the records.
What's your view on age?
I wish I didn't have to think about it too much, but spaceflight's good for age. I have a lot less wrinkles up here. Things float. It's a good place to be as you get older.
How do you stay physically fit in space?
Actually, we spend a lot of time staying physically fit in space. It's important for our bones and muscles. Without gravity affecting us, we would lose muscle mass and bone density. In fact, we would lose bone density faster in a month than a geriatric woman on Earth would lose bone mass in a year. And so it's very dramatic, and we have to try very hard to specifically stimulate those areas of bone, primarily the hips and the lower back, to try and maintain our bone density while we're up here. Our exercise device, it's an advanced resistive exercise device. We pull against resistance, and it's isolated. Vibrations are isolated from the station so we don't impact the experiments on board the station, and it's actually a very sophisticated piece of hardware, and it feels very much like you're on the ground lifting weights. So it's great. And then we also have a treadmill, which of course we have to wear a harness and have tethers to hold us down to the treadmill itself, because obviously we would just push away and into the ceiling if we were running. And we have a bike. We clip onto the bike and cycle much like you would on the ground.
You mentioned lifting weights. I read your hobbies include weightlifting, biking, basketball, and water skiing. Why water skiing, and are there any similarities to space?
Water skiing is just fun. I started doing it when I was a kid. There was a lake a couple miles from our house, and so it was kind of the summertime sport for my brother and I, was to go water skiing all the time. So I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. I don't get to do it as much these days anymore.
What do you do on the space station when you're not working, in your downtime?
Well, we have a phenomenal window in the cupola. It's a 360-degree view of the Earth. It's on the bottom side of the station, so it's looking down, and we fly most of the time horizontally over the Earth, so that we're always looking down at the Earth, and it's just an incredible view. There's always something new, something even more beautiful than the last time you might have flown over the Caribbean or Australia or the Mediterranean. There's always something incredible. The light angle will be different, and it's just an incredibly beautiful view. We also have access to an internet protocol phone, so we can actually call home to friends and family and stay connected that way. That's obviously something we're not going to have in future exploration missions, but it makes us feel very connected here, as well as being able to have video conferences with family and friends as well. So you feel very connected here. We have an incredible ground team. Actually, we have ground team all over the world that keeps us very connected and stays on top of us, helps us keep getting our job done as most efficiently and effectively as we can, and giving us all the pointers to help us understand when we don't have everything figured out.
Do you have any advice on living strong?
Do I have any life? I didn't hear the end of the question.
Do you have any advice on living strong?
I think it's very important to pursue your goals, and in doing that, I think you are strong. If you're pursuing those things in life that inspire you, then you are strong.
All right. And do you feel as though you have more missions in store?
I don't know about that. We've got a lot of folks who want to fly in space, and I would like to see them fly as well.
Are you able, in the last 30 seconds we have left, to show us a spin? My producer's asking.
There's a vertical spin. And here comes horizontal. That's actually one of the most fun things to do when you're living up here, is just be here. Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the CBS News portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from WFTV Orlando.
Station copies.
You've reached the WFTV WRDQ control room in Orlando, Florida. Please stand by. The WFTV.
Station, this is Vanessa Eccles from WFTV Orlando. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear, Vanessa.
Excellent. Dr. Whitson, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm here in the Channel 9 studios in Orlando, but I have some young girls here, 8th and 9th graders, and they are going to ask you the questions. So we're going to start with Tanaya. She has the first question for you.
You have been in space for a total of 377 days. During that time, what was the hardest to overcome?
I think probably the hardest thing to overcome is the food. The lack of variety of the food, it gets a little boring after a while. But really, for the most part, being able to live here and work here in such a different environment is very special because we have this unique experience that is so novel. It just really feels very, very special.
And the next question comes from Alicia.
Which stage in your education or career path did you have to persevere the most to achieve your goal?
Well, I think in math I had a lot of challenges when I was in high school and especially in college. But I think once I got into a field of science that I really, really enjoyed, everything became a lot easier for me. And I even learned how to apply that math that was very difficult along the way. I think in becoming an astronaut, probably the most challenging part has actually been learning Russian. I'm not very skilled at languages, and so that's actually been, I think, the hardest thing for me. Everything else hasn't maybe not been easy, but it's always been interesting to me. And so I think learning new things has been extremely valuable for me.
And the next question comes from Hayla, who's in the 9th grade.
Hi, I've seen that you major in biochemistry in Iowa Wesleyan College. What or who made you want to become an astronaut?
Actually, when I was 9 years old, I saw the first astronauts walk on the moon, and I thought, wow, cool job. But I don't think it became a goal of mine until I graduated from high school, and that was the year they picked the first female astronauts. And from that point on, I pursued that goal. And luckily, I had no idea how hard it would be to become an astronaut, but it worked out for me.
And the next question is from Sophia.
Do you have any advice for young girls interested in the space program?
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat that question, please.
Do you have any advice for young girls interested in the space program?
Absolutely. I definitely think you should pursue your goals in the space program. There are tons of different fields of all the people that work at NASA. Any field in math, science, and engineering, there are an incredible variety of jobs at NASA that can help you explore what you most want to do and how it applies to space exploration. So I think if you go online, you can look up in NASA educational opportunities. There's grants for young people, and also just lots of different ideas of the variety of jobs that are available out there that are related to spaceflight.
And Dr. Whitson, I'll ask the next question, and that is, as adults, what can we do to stimulate girls' interest in this whole idea of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math? What do we say to them to inspire them?
I think that the goals that you can achieve are going to be even greater than what you might dream of. So you really should plan on exceeding even what your expectations might be. But in order to do that, you're going to have to push yourself very, very hard and actually try things that might be more difficult or beyond your reach. I never dreamed I would be a commander on the International Space Station, and I made it. But I never dreamed of that initially. I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to do these things. And so don't underestimate yourself and what you can achieve just by pushing yourself beyond your comfort level. So always remember that.
And Tanaya has the next question for you again.
What made you want to go into biochemistry?
I really, in high school, I really enjoyed biology. And when I went to college, I started taking a lot of chemistry classes. And I ended up double majoring in biology and chemistry. And at the end of my college career, I took my first class in biochemistry. And I thought, well, that's the perfect melding of two things I really, really liked very much. And so that was how I chose biochemistry.
Other than being an astronaut, what job would you love to have?
Well, before I became an astronaut, I actually worked at the Johnson Space Center for 10 years. It took a lot of years of applying before I was lucky enough to be selected. But during that time, I held a lot of different positions at NASA, and I found all of those very challenging from a scientific level to a leadership level, and I learned a lot of new things there. So I think I would still work at NASA even if I weren't an astronaut.
And Taylor? For your first expedition, which I believe is Expedition 5, how much training did you go through, and what did you feel about it?
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat your question again.
For your first expedition, which I believe is Expedition 5, how much training did you go through, and what did you feel about it?
Well, actually, after I got selected to be an astronaut, we did a couple of years of just general training. And then later I was selected for a space flight, and I did 3 years of training. And we train astronauts because astronauts can come from any field in science, math, engineering, aviation, aeronautical engineering. The astronauts tend to have a lot of different backgrounds, and what we try to do when we bring in the young astronauts is to give them the experience base that makes them good or have some knowledge in as many of those areas that we can that actually apply to doing scientific research up here, living in an operationally technical environment. And so trying to integrate all those capabilities and skills together, I think, is very important. Probably the most fun part of the training was some of the training in the spacesuit, some of the most challenging as well. But it was good to to do that training because it made you feel like a real astronaut. And for me, flying in the T-38 is also a very special experience and very unique to the astronaut training that I would never have had before in any other situation. So I really enjoyed that as well.
Dr. Whitson, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much, and I know that you have a birthday this week, so we want to wish you happy birthday as well. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And all of you young ladies and young people out there, I really encourage you to pursue your goals and don't give up. Dream big.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you, all participants from CBS News and WFTV Orlando. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.